The information provided by Taming Lightning is designed to provide helpful information and to educate on the subjects discussed. The information provided is true and complete to the best of our knowledge and is not intended to be used without professional guidance and supervision. All recommendations are made without guarantee on part of Taming Lightning and affiliates. Taming Lightning and affiliates disclaim any liability in connection with the use of this information. Taming Lightning is supported by the Pittsburgh Glass Center, who encourage my exploration, research, and development of a space for plasma and neon sculpture. The Pittsburgh Glass Center is a nonprofit, public access school, gallery, and state-of-the-art glass studio dedicated to teaching, creating, and promoting glass art. World-renowned artists come from all over to make glass art. People interested in learning more about glass come here to take classes, explore contemporary art gallery, and watch live glass demonstrations. As one of the top glass art centers in the world, we pride ourselves on providing exceptional resources and instruction to expand the skills and knowledge of our students and artists. We strive to foster a new generation of glass artists and enthusiasts here in the Pittsburgh region. The Pittsburgh Glass Center is an important arts organization in Pittsburgh that is helping the city connect its history as a major producer in glass to its creative future through the innovative use of glass as art. Glass art. We teach it, we create it, we promote it. We support those who make it. If you're interested in plasma and want to get hands-on experience with this unique medium, I will be teaching 2 classes at PGC this summer along with Ed Kirshner and Pat Collentine. From June 22nd to the 26th of 2020, Ed and myself will run the Plasma Vessels Using Glass Solder class, where you can learn how to use the unique soldering technique to repurpose existing glass objects into beautiful plasma artworks. This class is open to all skill levels from beginner to expert. And from August 3rd through the 7th, with Pat, we will be teaching the class It's All About the Light, a class for beginners exploring and expanding ways to make vessels for plasma in the hot shop. Registration for summer classes has begun, kicking off with the early bird rate of $800 if paid before February 1st. Fees increase to $850 on February 1st and will rise to the full rate of $900 on April 15th. Starting this summer, discounts such as the membership discount are not applicable. If you know you would like to take these or any of the other classes we offer, take advantage of the early bird registration price. For more information, please check us out on the web at www.pittsburghglasscenter.org or call our studio at 412-365-2145. I'd like to mention a support option for Taming Lightning, which is Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/taminglightning. With this, you're basically donating or giving a tip at the cost of a $3 cup of coffee based on how you think I'm doing, and if you like the project, it's nice and supported. Your donation goes directly to the podcast for means of assisting with audio equipment upgrades, billing or hosting, software and services used in processing the audio, and future travel and professional content. You are by no means obligated to donate, but any support, including commenting and sharing, is appreciated. Welcome back, or welcome to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'm Percy Eccles II. I'm the creator and host of Taming Lightning, as well as the emerging plasma tech at Pittsburgh Glass Center. Taming Lightning podcast features a series of conversations to help expand our understanding of plasma and neon light, looking beyond its associations with novelty and sign making, and to explore the potential for noble gases as an artistic medium. The intro is Boost by Joachim Karud. Joachim is a Swedish artist who loves to produce chill and happy music, and does so for copyright-free use. Be sure to support his music by giving credit when used, subscribing, and or by donation. You can find him on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Hello, Lightning Tamers. This is episode number 22. In today's podcast, we have David Johansen, aka Neon Dave, in Portland, Maine. Dave and I met during the first plasma glass offered at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, taught by Wayne Strattman and Mundy Hepburn. After following his work, I thought I'd touch base with Dave and learn a little bit more about his work and how he came about neon, and to, of course, check in on his interest in plasma. I guess we really actually met during the Light Up the World with Plasma class at Pittsburgh Glass Center. But if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what it's like to be a one-man neon studio.
Well, I am up here in Portland, Maine, and like you said, operating a one-man neon studio. So, I think there's some real pros and cons to being a one-person operation. I've worked in not a big shop, but bigger, with maybe 20 employees, and the plus sides are that I get to do some of the design work and stuff that I was missing out on just being a vendor. And get to do whatever I want, schedule my own time and everything like that. But there's certainly negative sides too, as far as fielding all the emails and clients and stuff, and like making it all happen, ordering things. But it's sort of a model that, in a certain sense, is a sort of classic neon model, is the one-man shop.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't live in classic times anymore, so it's always been evolving, right? Like, as neon has changed, the business models have also changed. So what worked 40, 50 years ago doesn't necessarily work now the same way anyway. Plus you have the whole sort of shift towards fine art and the creative aspects of it. So as a one-person shop, it's like you have to sort of be able to recognize when things would be better done in a bigger shop, and to send those people in that direction. Like if someone wants something that I know a sign shop could do just as well, if not better, and probably for cheaper, then I send people off in that direction. I originally got into doing neon to make artwork, to make fine art. I was already a painter.
Oh.
Yeah, I was a painter, mixed media, acrylic, and I wanted to add neon into my paintings, and that's how I got started on the whole thing, really. And I was doing that for years and getting sort of more and more elaborate with the mixed media stuff, and then eventually all the other materials just fell away. And I pared it down to just doing neon, because well, you always change what you're doing in your art practice anyway. But I was using a lot of resin and stuff, and I just don't even like the toxicity of those kind of things anymore. All the different I just can't even really stand resin anymore.
Yeah, it's can be a pain in your butt too.
Yeah, you don't want to get it on you or anything, and it's expensive. I'm open to getting back into that eventually at some point too. Part of the problem with making fine art out of just neon is the sort of installation required.
Yeah.
What if it's not on anything, then you sort of have to be directly installing it on the wall, and you kind of need a qualified person to do that. So, I can make neon artwork, but I can't, unless it's mounted onto something, you can't really send it too far away to sell it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why things that are more like paintings with a neon element on it That's one of the reasons why that can sort of do better in the general art market, because it
Right.
can be
'Cause,
hung a lot like a painting can be hung, which is like the easiest thing ever to do. You know, you
yeah, it's a
put
simple
the hook on the
installation
wall.
versus being there doing it yourself or having more of elaborate instructions for mounting it.
Right, right. So one of the things I want to get into soon is making all glass things that it's mounted on, basically using the kiln to sort of fuse um, tube stands and like all the elements that need to go on a sort of a glass backer that can, obviously play with the idea of colors or, at how much a part of the piece it's going to be. But because I feel like that'll translate well into the art world, as well as getting out of the actual plastic clips and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And when you got into neon and you were, I mean, looking into learning it, what was going, like, what was your steps to getting to learn that process?
So
Like,
I
how was that
guess
experience?
I guess the first thing was, at that point I had a pretty boring job um, at a graphic design advertising agency. So I had a lot of time to surf the web.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I got this idea of neon in my head, I looked up everything to do with neon, and got more and more into it. I don't even think before I started researching that I really understood that it was handmade out of glass or anything like that. I was just like, I need to have lights, I want to have neon lights. And then once I got into it, I was like, oh, I want to do this because I'm totally sick of sitting in this cubicle, and this sounds perfect. So I researched the hell out of it, and then I visited a couple places where I could learn. And at that point, I was 23 years old. I was 100% comfortable with moving anywhere in my car. Just I would just go there, So I ended up going to this place called the National Neon Institute. It was in California. It doesn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
And so that was an intensive trade program uh, geared to getting you up to speed to be an actual production vendor. So it was kind of old school in not just what you were learning, but also the reason why you were learning it.
Mm-hmm.
I could go there as an artist, and that was totally fine. I actually started off a little bit ahead of the game, but there was no real talk about fine art at that place. It was pretty much, we're going to teach you how to bend every letter, every style, and get as much bombarding and sort of classic sign fabrication and installation, of a sort of window signs. Um, so I know these days it's a little tougher to get that, to find something that's that many hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was all day, every day, and I lived in a little dorm there, and for I think 3.5 months. Um, so yeah, it's kind of a shame. They don't. I don't know of anything exactly like that now.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of different craft spaces or even programs like that have kind of fallen away and there's not really much left of it.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the changing nature of the, like, getting back to the business models and stuff. I mean, this was all sort of based on this era where you could really make a good living just doing production bending. So you're doing channel letters that go inside of cans that no one ever even sees.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing that all day long, and it's like a certain dollar amount per letter, and you'd be wholesaling it out to sign shops. But then when they'd go take it, install it, and everything, they'd bring you the pattern, sometimes bring you the glass. You bend it, they take it away. And then on the more custom side, all the sort of letters, block letters, script, where you would be charging by the letter. Um, And it was just this sort of, they had a sort of formula for like, you can make X amount of dollars in X amount of time. And it's just really not like that at all anymore. The place was so sort of founded on that business model. They make the school, and then this was in the state of California. They had a pretty generous workman's comp retraining program in California.
Mm-hmm.
So they would, so Neon, the owner of this school, sort of got it through some of the people in that program to make this one of the offerings. So say you hurt your back or you hurt your leg or something like that, they give you this list of things of like, okay, you can get retrained in one of these fields, and Neon was one of them. And people would be like, yeah, I'll go do that. And then California would pay their whole tuition and give them a living stipend to get trained. And I can say from my experience being there for a while, because I stayed after I was a student and was sort of helping out around there to get my table time.
Mm-hmm.
I can say a lot of people did not continue on in Neon after the program. Just going there, it was sort of a bit of a free ride. So yeah. I can see why it did close down eventually, because I'm not saying it was a scam, but it was like, it was based, its model was based on getting these state retrained people. And that was based on the fact that there would be a job waiting for them when it was done. Right. Yeah. So that wasn't the case anymore. So what's the point of the state training to paying to retrain these people in basically just, following patterns, making letters.
Yeah. Yeah. So like from that experience and leading into what you do now, you found that you've shifted that and it's working for you so far, but are there things that you're kind of taking into consideration that's making it a model that's obviously has to continue to develop because things are changing today?
Right. And I think it was partially forward thinking and partially luck that made my idea sort of be how it, like, my whole plan was to do this for art. And then also I thought, well, I also, it's hard to be a successful fine artist. That might not happen. So I can also do this as a job. That was my whole sort of plan. And as it is, the way that things have shifted and Neon's sort of popularity that it's experiencing right now is fairly well suited anyway towards how I wanted to take it anyway, which was more creative, more high-end, getting away from this sort of cheap sign idea and only doing cool stuff, really. Plus the art as well, which already existed, was already being done, is gotten more popular, I would say, although I'd say certain aspects of Neon and fine art, I think have peaked as far as the like phrases on the wall. I hope so anyway. But still, it had a big surge in popularity. Social media played into that as well. And I just was sort of in that niche at the right place and right time to be able to try and ride that wave anyway.
Yeah, it's a lot of the word installation play, and that because it's just in context of where it is, or just like popular phrase, and then the Instagram selfie to kind of bring attention. So it's doing a little bit of its original context, which is to bring attention. But then we have people like yourself, many others who are playing around with imagery and in sculpture and things of that sort.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a big difference in, if you want to look at just the fine art, Neon, that's in that context, that's sort of referring to signs as they are in our, popular mind. And then the stuff has nothing to do with signs at all. It's just Neon as a medium. And that's where you start getting into your plasma and stuff. It's Neon as a glass medium. And if people do make connections with signage, that's sort of just in their that's because they can't get away from those two things.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's art that is basically a sign art, and that's definitely not what I set out to do for the most part. I mean, I'll make an exception for anything, but
Yeah, if the project is right and the guest or client is
well, that would be commercial work, and
yeah.
In the commercial sense, at this point, yeah, I'm still doing, some pretty traditional signage type stuff, as well as some more sort of imagery and more my style stuff I design, stuff that starts to sort of cross into the line into being more like my art series,
Right.
even if it is a commercial job. And I do try and give priority to those people. But at this point, yeah, I'm still doing some sort of signage type stuff. But as far as my fine art that I'm just producing on my own in order to show eventually and have, I can only think of one time I've ever used text in that, and that was just because it's a sort of one-off sort of political type piece. But for the most part, I'll never use text in my art because it's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do, is trying to get it away from its use in signage, and sort of through creating the work, subtly educating people about the material itself, that is really, although it makes good signs, that's not what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I think the plasma stuff is actually a little easier to do that with because no one looks at it and thinks sign.
Right.
Whereas when you're using the sort of tubing, you kind of have to get a breakthrough moment with people for them to be like, oh yeah, like this really isn't a sign at all. Like it's not.
Since you've since that class, have you like futzed around with anything regarding pressures and plasma?
I wish I could say I have, but I've been pretty busy with all my stuff, and my oven that I purchased used a while ago has some repair work that I need to do. I need to call the manufacturer and get some parts, and it's just one of those things that's sort of on my list. I have done a little single electrode work where I've been doing it sort of the simplest way, which is where you bombard it with 2 electrodes and then you take one off.
Yeah. Jonathan
so
was doing stuff like that himself.
Yeah, so it's already sort of under vacuum, so you just have to be careful when you're heating it up and pulling the electrode off. And then I made a little enclosure for one of the cheaper power supplies that Mundy had that was sort of exposed, So I made a little sort of plexiglass thing for that, and had some pretty nice, like 5-foot long single electrode pieces. But yeah, I've definitely been. It's definitely on my list to get that system up and running. Also to do the fusing that I'll be able to do some fusing, I think, in this oven. So I'd like to maybe take another class too at some point in the fusing and slumping.
Oh yeah, definitely. Hey, I might even encourage you to, depending on how much time you think you do have, to try our idea furnace at Pittsburgh Glass Center. I know we got a lot of different people that come in and they will focus on some aspect of glass that they don't have a lot of experience in, and be able to get assistance in learning and then making those ideas come to fruition. And the idea furnace is like a year-round thing, so you can apply for that and come in as much as you think you can. It doesn't have to be like a, be here for 3 months in a row type of thing. You can come in for like a week at a time or maybe a weekend at a time. We're very flexible in allowing artists that do have to travel quite a bit to be able to kind of figure out their schedule.
Well, that sounds great. Yeah, I'll definitely look at that.
And, by then I'll probably experiment more with what I'm trying to figure out for plasma. And then also I've been talking to Tommy Gustafschild, and he's been telling me about how he only process his tubes through oven pumping.
Oh yeah, I've seen the setup.
Mhm.
That's extensive. And when I learned neon, I definitely it was talked about the sort of different um, styles and methodologies in different countries.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Definitely, we call those sort of square ends. I was told we call them German or Dutch ends, but they're really
Yeah.
sort of European itself. And definitely about how, um, yeah, the Netherlands and Scandinavian countries, they do a lot of oven pumping.
Hmm.
France apparently uses boro mostly for their
Oh
neon.
yeah, I've heard about that
Um,
too.
and yeah, you see a lot of different sort of things being done. The oven certainly has an advantage, but I've seen with his, I mean, it's big, and he waits until there's like dozens of things to pump all at once.
Yeah.
Uh, Seems like quite the elaborate setup. I I imagine that I will still continue to bombard my two-ended electrode pieces for the most part.
Yeah.
I know there are some advantages to oven pumping, but it just seems like the kind of thing that it's like, don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
Yeah. It slows you down a bit.
And I've spent so much time. I mean, one of my first jobs was just bombarding right out of the neon training program. I was working a few different jobs and doing a couple of freelance neon pieces, but then I got this job doing just bombarding, and that was at a one-man shop. It was just this guy, Marty, and he was just making channel letters all day. And it was like a night job. I could go in and just bombard everything that he had made during the day. Um, and so combine that with some of my other jobs, and it's almost like second nature now.
You know what's
Uh,
interesting is I don't know if you've been following James Akers much, but he's setting up neon at Wheaton Art,
huh. Yeah.
and so that's
I
been
saw something about
really
that.
awesome. So that's another thing on my list if I'm going to apply for residency to look at that as well. And there's so much you can do there.
What is Wheaton? I don't know what Wheaton Arts
Um,
is.
so
It's
it's
not a
like
school.
it's not a school. It's like let me pull it up here. Like I like peek at it every once in a while, but in most context, I've been referenced that in terms of like residencies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a craft. It's like it's called Wheaton Arts Center. Um, so it's a nonprofit organization. It has some educational aspects to it for glass, ceramics, all this stuff. Has a lot of different materials you can mess with, so you don't necessarily have to just do glass. Um, but it's awesome that James has been able to help expand that into having neon available. But it is predominantly glass for its facility, but it also has things like ceramics, I think also metalworking and other things like that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, because definitely one of the downsides to mediums like this, and so obviously some others, is you know residencies are just not really a thing. Residencies are great for painters, drawers, even poets and musicians, where you can go and get these great opportunities to be in some different environment and just focus on your work. But
Hmm.
it's just, I need my shop. What
Yeah,
am I going to do? I can go somewhere and draw designs for a month and get ready. But so that's pretty interesting. The only thing I would you know make sure that when he leaves, that you don't have anyone trying to figure out how to use a bombarder by themselves, because it's very dangerous.
yeah, and
So hope
that's one of the main reasons why at the Glass Center we don't have one set up because none of us have used it, and we just don't have that single space to put it, so it doesn't have to be set up and reassembled each time. So, but
Right. I mean, you could have it on another sort of rolling system, but yeah, you definitely want someone who's got a lot of experience to be training people, and it's not the kind of thing you want to figure out on your own. I mean,
Yeah.
not to say that no one's ever done it. I'm sure they have, but I don't know. I take it pretty seriously.
Yeah. There's a reason why it's called the Widowmaker.
Yeah, I mean, little transformers are one thing, getting a little shock here and there, but you don't want to touch that thing.
Mm-hmm. It's also a thing with like residencies and stuff like that. Just figuring out how to make that work for you in your life. I mean,
That's true. I
currently,
mean, you're at a certain advantage when you're at a certain age. Um, like I said, when I went to learn neon, I was 23, and yeah, I could really go anywhere or do anything at that point. I mean, obviously, you need to save up a little money to make any trip,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, you get more and more locked in as it goes on. You gotta work more and more, especially if you're an artist and you're you know, a lot of artists, we don't have our second jobs aren't always the highest paying. So yeah, it's hard to find that time. It's like hiking the Appalachian Trail or something. It's like sounds great, but I can't really take that time off.
Yeah. And so similarly, I'm in that situation as well, where I'm trying to figure, okay, if I do this, how do I make sure I have enough money to pay for back here, where I'm basically renting and all that stuff. Some people, they move everywhere to get there, and
Right.
others, they have a setup or opportunity that allows them to be as flexible as possible. Like James does a lot of his, um, his own work in his own house, so he doesn't have to worry about additional renting costs as
Right.
much as he
Exactly.
can two separate big spaces, and the flexibility to work with other artists or neon vendors in the area has also helped him a lot too. Along with his job, allows him to move around a lot. So I'm hoping to get back on here to have him talk a bit more about what he's been doing, because he's got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, especially the cold cathode tubes that he's been making recently.
Yep. Um, yeah, it's definitely a thing, and certainly the solo bender. It's another classic model to sort of have it in your barn or have in your garage. Um, I don't have that kind of space. I'm pretty urban as far as where I am, and so I do have that overhead of a shop,
Mm-hmm.
but it has given me the advantage of being in a area that has other artists and has up and coming sort of. It's considered a sort of up and coming type place, and so I've sort of been able to establish myself as the neighborhood is changing, and you know, eventually it'll be too pricey for artists to be there anymore, but we're still sort of in that spot, and so it actually has given me, as opposed to being, you know, out a little further and in my garage, being in that neighborhood has definitely got me to meet a lot of people and just sort of word of mouth type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I do some work for a coffee shop, and then that's just how stuff starts. So it can be pretty helpful, but yeah, I could see eventually having a better house with a shop there. Certainly.
And in your experience, have you done any teaching at all, or?
When I stuck around the school that I learned at, um, I had picked it up fairly fast, and then I stuck around there for a couple years, and was sort of the de facto junior instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I basically got free table time as long as I was available to assist, and the head instructor would sometimes get migraines,
Yeah.
and then it'd be sort of up to me. So I did a fair bit of instructing, and that was when I was newer to it than I am now, and so that wasn't really so much with the bombarding and more complicated installation type things and stuff like that. It was pretty much just teaching bending itself, and so yeah, I certainly saw dozens of students come through and the wide range of skill levels, and really just seeing. I mean, it's not just part of it was about how serious the student themselves were, but other parts of it was really just it's a finicky and subtle material that some people just have more of a magic touch right off the bat and just sort of get it. Other people can't, it's the eye-hand coordination and the patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can definitely be a tricky subject. And I mean, I see a lot of the smaller workshops that are available for people to learn. And they're kind of curtailed by the short duration. Like, no one's going to learn how to seriously bend over the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's a great, in a sense, there's another business model, that teaching workshops or classes. It's a great way to sort of supplant or have a school or supplant your shop. But yeah, the most people could really hope for is to, make a squiggle, and then probably have the instructor bombard it for them, and then they get a squiggle at the end of the weekend, or maybe a shape or something like that. But to be able to sort of proficiently recreate any pattern that's in front of you is going to take a substantial amount of time.
Yep.
And then you still mess up. I mean, like, you'll be doing it forever. You're still going to mess up sometimes.
It's very curious how there's still people that there's still not people, but there's still that odd mindset to believe beyond your skill set, your current levels of skill set. Because there was a couple of things that came up from a couple of people. They were like worried that you're saying you can learn here and here and here, that people may think that they can learn in 2 days. But I try to give people the benefit of a doubt in believing that if they had attained any skill whatsoever in their life, that they understood it took time.
Right.
And it's interesting that, like silly and perhaps, I guess, moronic that people would believe otherwise. You can't fool yourself into believing. You can fool yourself into believing that a skill is easy to acquire, but there's all types of evidence, your own experience, to prove that wrong.
Right. And I mean, things do have their different, variables of complexity, or maybe how fast you could pick it up. But then with things like this too, there's always more to learn continuously, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, certain things are going to give you an advantage. Like if you've worked in glass before, like any kind of glass, then you have a sensitivity for the material. You know how it moves, you know how to heat it up. You're not going to freak out the second it gets, wobbly. So that can be a big advantage. Like obviously someone who's really good at lamp work is going to pick up neon a lot faster than someone else. And it's a tricky material, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Glass, and of course, you ever worked with wood very much?
Wood?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Wood's a fickle material as well.
Yeah, wood can be. There's certainly the whole, you can't add it back. But glass, it breaks. That's its nature. That's its nature. Glass breaks.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you?
Okay, you broke off for a second.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, no, I tell people all the time that glass has a destiny, and its destiny is to break. Eventually, it's going to break. It might be 2 days down the road. It might be 100 years later, but like it wants to smash. It's almost asking for it. I saw a great lecture once. There's this lady who made this. She was more of a public artist, and she had done this big bus stop out of pink glass. It was in Cambridge, Mass. And it was out for like about a week, and then someone literally shot it up.
What?
With a gun. Yeah, someone did a drive-by and shot this thing up. And, so of course she's, devastated. It was a big public art project. She had to, bid for it and everything, apply. And the way that she eventually came around to it was sort of trying to put herself in someone else's head who doesn't build things, who doesn't make things out of glass, certainly. And to them, like almost the purpose of anything made of glass is to break. That to them, that's what glass does. It breaks, right? So what can you do with, here's the thing, what can you do with it? Break it. It's the only thing you really can do with it. And so she eventually sort of forgave in her own way by sort of putting herself in the mind of thinking, hey, there's a thing. What can I do with it? The answer is break it. Not that it's a good thing to do at all. I'm just saying it's an interesting way to try to think of the material.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just the way to move on. I mean, the impermanence of things,
Yeah, certainly.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time here. I know you got busy Neon Dave stuff to do.
Got to make some letters.
Yes, sir. I do appreciate you taking the time and having the schedule open for all types of technical errors here. Where can we find you on the social medias? Yeah,
so pretty much live on Instagram. I don't do much Facebook these days, although I do go onto the Plasma and the Neon site. Instagram is neon_Dave.
All right. Any last things you'd like to mention before we close up here?
No, nothing else. It's great talking to you. And if you ever need any knowledge I have for doing things down there in Pittsburgh, hit me up and I'll help the best I can.
Yeah, will do. The outro is The Process by Lakey Inspired. Jordan, aka Lakey, is a Los Angeles-based artist with the goal of inspiring others to create by sharing positive music around the world. Thus, he works hard to produce music every week for copyright-free use. So be sure to support his music by giving credit when used, subscribing, and/or by donation via Patreon. You can find him on Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Thank you for listening to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'd like to thank David Johansen for taking the time to record for the podcast. I certainly learned more about his practice and some interesting insights on navigating his art alongside his work. For example, the professional courtesy to know where your limits are at and providing the next steps for guests if there are things that you can't do in studio. And I think that's a very important thing to take to mind and take to heart. It's something I learned through my dad and learned through working in this medium and working through this community, is that if you find something that you are unable to do efficiently or you're unable to do with your current situation, that you would know the next steps to follow through and provide that next step for the client or guest to be able to continue their project. I think that's a very important thing. It allows the continual passing on. It makes you look good, knowing that, well, this person can't complete the project, but they have an idea of who can, and that person will appreciate you passing along that service. Also, I'd like to thank the Pittsburgh Glass Center for supporting me as a place of research and inspiration, as well as encouraging me to pursue this project and to help bring in these artists and instructors to help build and spread their knowledge. And the Plasma Art Alliance, where having access to a well of knowledge, it connects me to some amazing people. If you'd like to support Taming Lightning, subscribe to the newsletter on www.taminglightning.net or follow on Instagram at Taming Lightning. Other options for support are donations through Ko-fi, spelled ko-fi.com/taminglightning, where you can donate for the price of a $3 cup of coffee. Links will be provided in the show notes. Feel free to share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.